It's time to talk sports. When I say time to talk sports, I always think I'm on Sunrise Daily, but they're sister programs, so they'll understand. Yes, the focus is on Super Eagles today. Of course, we'll look at the attendant matters as they affect it, whether or not they do. Well, joining us to discuss that today, standing on my right, is Bada Akintoday, who is a sports analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Bukola Olokbade, sports analyst. Thank you for coming on as well.
Thank you very
And
much.
Rotimi Akindele, also a sports analyst on my far left. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Well, the big thing was that the last match we've played actually between Nigeria and Bafana-Bafana. We're glad, a good thing we didn't lose actually. But to so many, they thought that was as good as a loss.
Yeah, and you can understand the frustration and disappointment of the average Nigerian fan. We've become accustomed over time to seeing Nigerian teams steamroll over opposition like South Africa particularly, who haven't beaten us in any competitive fixture since they got back into international football. I think the first time they played a game in international football actually was right here in Lagos, 1992, when Nigeria beat them 4-0. Since then, they haven't beaten us. But that game on Wednesday was played under a different set of circumstances. Nigeria came out from a loss, a home loss at that, a shocking 3-2 reverse against the Congolese in Calabar. And Nigerians didn't know what to think going into that game. So to a certain degree, I felt that maybe the draw even felt good because if we lost at home to Congo, it wouldn't have been completely out of place if the South Africans had beaten us. But I thought there was some kind of marked improvement in terms of performance from what we saw on Saturday against South Africa. I thought the team looked a bit more solid defensively. They were not all over the place. The central defenders looked a bit more comfortable playing together. It looked more like a team that were African champions than the one we saw on Saturday. But there's no disguising the fact that we shouldn't be on a point when, Congo is on 6 points, South Africa on 4 points. It is by no means an end to our participation or our chances of qualifying for the Nations Cup. 2 teams will qualify outright. There's a chance for a best third team as well. So Nigeria will still have a chance to qualify. But Nigerians want Nigeria, the Super Eagles, to do it in grand style because we are African champions, because we're supposedly giants of African football.
You know, and then they ask themselves as well, while they think about all of those, is when is the African champions going to play their best game? Have that kind of game that you see in the match and you think, now that's what I'm talking about. That's a good game, even though we lose.
It's been a while. It's been a while we saw that sort of performance, with all of the swagger that you expect from a team that is replete with quality drawn from some of the best leagues in world football. Unfortunately, some would argue that when you have the sort of off-field shenanigan that has plagued Nigerian football ever since the World Cup, you have absolutely no right to expect anything better on the pitch of play. The coach doesn't even have a contract. The NFF has been, in 6s and 7s. And then you expect that the Super Eagles will go out there and play like Brazil or play like Spain. I mean, these things don't exactly happen this way. But there's no disguising the fact that even the players themselves have got a role to play in that. The performance on the pitch has got to be strictly down to the players' abilities and the ability of the coach, to execute a perfect, game plan. That we haven't seen in the last 2 games. That I'm afraid we haven't seen in a long time, because the last time the Super Eagles won a game, I thought was about 8-9 games ago. Bar the game against Bosnia at the World Cup. So it's been a very long stretch of unimpressive performances, and Nigerians are dying for that time when we'll blow teams out of the waters again.
Bukola, the NFF matter, did it have any direct effect on our performance?
Well, I have always said many times that in as long as I have known the Nigeria FA, we've always had issues. It has never in any way affected the way our players have played. Nigeria actually thrived with the female team in Canada all through this imbroglio. So for me, it is not an issue. But more importantly is the fact that our players, like he said, must come to the table and be counted. Our players are professional players. The performances we saw on Saturday and Wednesday were, to say the least, appalling. And you cannot put that blame on the table of the administrators. But I am the sort of person that I'd really like to look back at what has happened. I like to be progressive in my approach. Now, the Super Eagles, did we do well with those 2 matches? Obviously, we did not. But even when we won the Nations Cup, we were not actually playing the best of our football. We won the Nations Cup through doggedness, through raw patriotism, but more importantly, sheer luck.
You didn't talk about any input from the coach.
Cumulatively, when you look at it, the coach was very patriotic. I mean, he spoke about the coach not being paid, even as we speak today. He came to do the job, patriotism. Do we need to go further now and get top-class technical hands? These are issues we need to start looking at. Is Keshi managing the successes of the victory at the Nations Cup and the qualification at the World Cup well? Is he managing it well? Personally, I don't think so, and he's my very good friend and brother. I don't think so, because I believe strongly that the failure to manage the successes is what is affecting us on the pitch, rather than the administrative aspect. Our players, I mean, in pidgin English, people will say, he get them before, no big game. Some of our players will even wear their trunks to the knee and start strutting like headless chicken flapping around after the neck has been taken off. For me,
does that affect the game?
It does. It does. Lack of discipline. When you go and play, look, there are no minnows in African football anymore. Nigeria went against Congo thinking they are there for the taking, and they started strutting like Tolo Turkey, and they were playing the big boys. They were playing like the big boys. You cannot go to any African football match today and believe that you are the big boys. They will take you out. Today in Africa, there are no minnows, and you see all through the results, you see that every team is at the top of their games, and they'll take you out if you underestimate them. And it was the underestimation of Congo that cost us that match. And guess what? Despite the defeat from Congo, we still went to South Africa feeling that we were the big boys, and we almost got beaten.
Let me get Rotimi in. Do you share the same view? What's your reading of our performance so far?
I think it was, poor, considering the result of the game in Calabar and, of course, against South Africa. For the Calabar game, I just felt we got complacent before the start of that game. Even during the game, we still got so complacent, especially after we got the first goal. After you got the first goal, there was a response 3 minutes after from the Congolese. Then you should wake up. But we didn't see all of that. We were on the back foot throughout in the first half of that game. And I think I said something in the second half. This is a game between Claude Leroy and Keshi. They are not on the same pedestal. And we saw the difference after 90 minutes. 3-2, they won comfortably. On Wednesday, we saw the same thing. I personally saw the Congo-Sudan game. What they did to us in Calabar was no fluke, because they still actually put up that kind of performance in the game against Sudan and won comfortably. How about Nigeria? We went to the South African game. Yes, all the facts, all the statistics were in our favor. We've beaten them. The only game they won was in a Nelson Mandela Challenge, friendly match and all that. So let's go into this game and run over these guys. But it didn't happen. You saw the South Africans. They were not exactly that brilliant. They were not that brilliant. But they had pace. They had belief in themselves that they were going to get something from that game. They were not going to lose in Cape Town that night. And of course, if you look at their approach into that game, you saw that the Super Eagles at some point started like, what are these guys bringing up again? Yes, we were able to manage it. And then, as you mentioned, we got lucky with a draw.
Could you shed some light on what you mean by when you say Claude Leroy and Keshi not on the same page?
They can't be on the same page. Claude Leroy has been a coach that had been on the continent, I think, since about 1988.
Help me out. When last did he bring Nations Cup?
For instance, when Keshi was still an active player.
He was the coach of
Cameroon that beat Nigeria.
Chamberlain, if we look at the performance indicators.
Yeah.
What about results?
That's performance indicators.
Yeah.
When we look at the performance indicators, obviously, come on, you must give credit to Keshi, that Keshi has done well in the African terrain.
Yeah.
Done better than Claude Leroy. So I'm not going to beat Keshi on it. But guess what? Against South Africa, just to support you a bit, against South Africa, remember what Sheikh's Mashaba said?
Yeah.
He said, we looked at the team, we realized that they were getting tired, and we asked our players, we brought in, what was the boy, the Bournemouth, the player from Bournemouth. We brought in that boy to run at the Super Eagles and tire them out more. That for me is strategic thinking, tactics. Keshi, my good friend and brother, with all due respect, who I think is a great coach, still needs some technical support. How he's going to get it if he still wants to coach Nigeria?